Yo book nerds, I finished reading MAIZY CHEN'S Last Chance by Lisa Yee. This book is about MAIZY Chen. She is a Chinese American. She lives in LA with her mom, but she moves back for a summer to Last Chance, Minnesota to stay with her grandparents. I'm from Minnesota. I'm pretty sure Last Chance is not a real city in Minnesota. I guess I don't know all of the towns in Minnesota, but I've never heard of it anyway. So I think it's made up, but it does take place in Minnesota. This book was okay for me. There is a dual timeline, which I liked. The chapters are really short, and so that was a little bit jarring because I couldn't really sink in because it felt like as soon as the chapter started, it ended. And I felt like I just couldn't get in and just keep going. I couldn't get in the flow of it, I guess, because it was just too choppy. But it wasn't a bad story by any means. Like, I don't think it was bad. I didn't hate it. MAIZY is trying to get to know her grandparents. Her grandpa is really sick. So she's there to kind of see if he gets better, to help run their Chinese restaurant. Yeah, and she is trying to figure out some mysteries involving some pictures she sees on the walls, and there is also some racism that she deals with and some prejudice that she has to combat. So like, I thought those themes were done pretty well. I guess I felt like the story was kind of blah. Like, I don't know, it wasn't bad, but I think that the setting of it in Minnesota I didn't like, because there was some stereotypes about Minnesotans that I did not like, because I hear them all the time. Like, don't you know? I don't think I've ever heard a Minnesotan use that phrase unless they were being sarcastic and trying to imitate the way people say us Minnesotans always talk. So like, I just didn't like that because come on, like, I don't like it. Us Minnesotans sometimes get portrayed as like stupid, and we're not. And so they didn't portray us as stupid, but I didn't really like that phrase getting used because that's usually what it's tied to. But anyway, kind of a side tangent. I think that was what I struggled with the most with this book, was just that it was set in Minnesota and it didn't feel authentic to me as a Minnesotan. But anyway, it's kind of ironic since this book involves prejudice and stuff. Obviously, it's not on the same scale, but it's still there. It's still valid, I think. But anyway, like I said, this book deals with racism, bullying, all that kind of stuff. Microaggressions. There is some hate crimes that are done, so trigger warning on that. The main vibes that I get out of this is that you need to stand up for yourself. MAIZY gets bullied and she eventually stands up for herself. That's a very powerful statement, especially since this is middle grade, and for the age that it's geared toward, that's very, very inspirational, and I hope that it sinks in with the audience that this is intended for. There were a few good lines in here that I will share. So even though this wasn't my favorite book of the year, it did have some gems in it. I will give it that. So in this book, MAIZY's mom and grandma have a lot of like issues with each other, and this is such a simple line, but I really liked it. It says, they use silence as weapons, and that is so true. Instead of talking things out and working things out, people do that. They just shut down and use that silence as like a barrier and as a weapon. And it's such a simple phrase, but I really liked it. It packed a punch. I do have to mention that they do talk about a city that I'm familiar with. They talk about the Jesse James gang, and they talk about Northfield, Minnesota, which is a real town, and Jesse James did go there. And so that was a nice little Easter egg about Minnesota. So I did appreciate that. I will give it that. There was some prejudice towards a gay couple, and I loved the way that this was handled, because one of the gentlemen wouldn't wear a wedding ring, and MAIZY's like, why won't you wear a wedding ring? And he says, partly because we haven't found the perfect ones yet, and also because not everyone around here is happy that we got married. And MAIZY says, I don't understand why you're trying to make the bigots feel comfortable. That is so true. Like, don't make the bigots feel comfortable. Do you. And let them be uncomfortable. It's on them. It's not your job to make people feel comfortable. It's on them. So I loved that line. That was great. Those are words to live by. I don't understand why you're trying to make the bigots feel comfortable. I am going to give you a little spoiler alert here. The grandpa does die at the end of this. And that did hit me because I recently lost my grandpa, and so like it's never easy, even when you're a grown adult, when you lose a grandparent. Maisie is a kid and she loses her grandparent, and I just felt her pain. And this December will be 2 years since I lost my grandpa, and I can't believe it's already been that long. I miss him so much, and so yeah, that hit me. Overall, I thought this book was okay. I had some issues with it. By all means, I still think you should check it out because it did have some good themes in it and some good messages. So don't take my word for it. I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. I guess I just didn't like the portrayals of some of the Minnesotan stuff. And also, fail on whoever published this. Who was the publisher? Let's see, because I'm going to call them out now. Random House. It was Random House. Oh my gosh, Random House, you published this with Packer colors. These need to be Vikings colors. What is this green? Hello? Anyway, I'll let it slide because I kind of have to, but how could you publish a book that takes place in Minnesota with Packer colors? Fail. Fail. Anyway, if you've read this book, let me know what you thought of it, and we can talk about it in the comments. That's all I have for you today. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next Monday. Thanks for talking books with me.